Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
All right. Well, today we're going to be exploring the building blocks of life.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, from those tiny molecules to like the complex structures,
Yeah.
all that stuff that makes life happen and how they all work together,
Right.
creating all that amazing diversity we see on Earth.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like the diversity of life is just incredible.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is like when you get down to those fundamental chemical components,
Right.
they're remarkably similar
Oh, interesting.
across all organisms.
So like nature's using what, like a universal set of building blocks?
Yeah, pretty much. It's almost like, you've got this massive Lego set, but instead of building, spaceships and castles,
Yeah.
nature's building living, breathing organisms.
Okay, that's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with all that complexity, how do scientists even begin to, analyze these building blocks?
Yeah. So, imagine you take a sample of living tissue, like a leaf or a piece of liver.
Okay.
Scientists can actually grind it up and use all sorts of techniques to separate the components based on their properties.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like sifting through a treasure chest,
Okay.
looking for all these different gems.
So what kind of gems are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, first off, one of the things you notice is just the sheer abundance of water.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It makes up a huge percentage of any living tissue.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense because it's essential for so many biological processes.
Yeah. But I guess beyond the water, there's a whole world of other molecules.
Absolutely.
Right.
Some small, some massive, and
Right.
they each have their own crucial role.
Okay, let's talk about those smaller molecules for a minute. I know they're, involved in all sorts of chemical reactions inside an organism.
Yeah, right. We call these molecules metabolites.
Metabolites. Okay.
They're like the busy workers of the cell, constantly building and breaking down and transforming things.
Okay, so what are the different types?
So we can kind of broadly categorize them into primary metabolites, which are totally essential
Right.
for the basic life processes.
Yeah.
Respiration, growth, all that.
Yeah.
And then there are secondary metabolites.
Okay, secondary metabolites. Those sound a little more mysterious.
They do, and they kind of are. They have more specialized roles.
Like what kind of roles are we talking?
Well, think about the caffeine in your coffee, right? Or those vibrant pigments that give flowers their color.
Yeah.
Or even, those potent compounds like penicillin that we use as antibiotics.
Oh, wow.
Those are all examples of secondary metabolites.
Interesting. So they're not essential for survival
Right.
in the strictest sense,
Not like those primary metabolites.
but I mean, they're important.
Right. Oh, yeah. They're super important.
Yeah.
They play key roles in things like defense mechanisms or communication between organisms or even just making life a bit more colorful and interesting.
So I guess they add a little spice to life, so to speak.
Exactly.
Right. That's cool. So we've got those smaller molecules, those metabolites, but what about the heavy hitters? You mentioned massive molecules earlier.
Yeah. The giants of the cellular world.
Okay, yeah.
These are what we call macromolecules.
Macromolecules.
And they're way larger than those small molecules we've been talking about.
Yeah.
That's because they're polymers.
Okay. Polymers.
Polymers, remember those?
Kinda. Remind me.
Think of it like a long chain
Okay.
made up of repeating units.
Right.
Kind of like, those beaded necklaces
Oh, yeah.
you might have made as a kid?
Yeah, I get it. Okay. So comparing a single bead to the whole necklace.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But why are these macromolecules so important?
Well, I mean, they form the very structures of our cells.
Oh, wow.
They catalyze essential reactions.
Okay.
They carry genetic information and perform a whole bunch of other tasks.
So they're what, like the specialized tools and machinery?
Yeah, they make life possible.
I'm ready to delve into these molecular giants. Where should we start?
Well, maybe the most versatile are proteins.
Proteins. Okay, yeah.
They're involved in pretty much every aspect of cellular function,
Wow.
from transporting molecules across membranes to catalyzing metabolic reactions.
So what, they're like the Swiss Army knives of the cell.
Yeah, capable of doing it all.
So what are these protein powerhouses made of? What's the basic recipe?
Well, they're essentially long chains of amino acids
Okay.
linked together like beads on a string.
Right.
There are 20 different types of amino acids.
Oh, wow.
And the specific sequence, the order they're arranged in,
Uh-huh.
that dictates the protein's unique structure
Okay.
and its function.
So if those amino acids are like different colored beads,
Yeah.
you could create an endless variety of necklaces,
That's a great way to visualize it.
each with its own like unique pattern and shape.
Right. And just like the arrangement of the beads determines the overall look of the necklace, the specific sequence of amino acids, which we call the primary structure,
Of the primary structure?
dictates how a protein will fold and interact.
Okay.
Ultimately, that's what determines its function.
Okay, I remember from biology class that proteins have all these like intricate shapes.
Yeah.
How does a simple like linear chain get that complex?
Well, that's where the secondary and tertiary structures come in.
Okay, secondary and tertiary.
So imagine that beaded necklace, right? It doesn't just stay as a straight chain.
Yeah.
It twists, it turns, it felds back on itself, creating helices and sheets and loops.
So that initial like twisting and turning,
Exactly.
that's the secondary structure.
Yeah, that's secondary structure. And then as the protein keeps folding, it forms like an even more complex three-dimensional shape.
Okay.
This is its tertiary structure.
Tertiary. Okay, got
It's like, imagine taking that beaded necklace and crumpling it up into a ball.
Okay.
You're creating this unique, intricate shape.
So there's even more folding. It's like I'm imagining like a complex origami project.
You're not far off. Some proteins are actually made up of multiple polypeptide chains,
Oh, wow.
each with its own tertiary structure.
Okay.
The way those individual chains fit together, that's what we call the quaternary structure.
Okay, so primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. That's a lot of complexity coming from like a simple chain of amino acids.
Yeah.
Can you give me some like concrete examples of what these proteins actually do?
Oh, yeah, tons. So collagen, that's a great example.
Collagen.
It's the most abundant protein in the animal kingdom.
Wow.
And it provides structural support.
Okay.
It gives our skin elasticity and our bones their strength.
So it's like the glue that holds us together.
Yeah, pretty much. Then there's rubisco.
Rubisco. Okay.
That might be the most important protein on Earth.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. It's responsible for capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere
Okay.
and converting it into sugar during photosynthesis.
So proteins are involved in everything from like keeping our skin looking young to literally feeding the planet.
Pretty amazing, right?
That's incredible. Okay, let's move on to another type of macromolecule. What about carbohydrates?
Carbohydrates.
Yeah.
These are polymers of sugars.
Okay.
They're crucial for a couple of key reasons.
Okay.
First, they serve as an energy source.
Okay, so like the fuel tanks of living organisms.
Exactly. Think about starch in plants.
Okay.
Or glycogen in animals.
Right.
These are like the energy reserves that our bodies tap into.
When we need a boost.
Yeah, when we need that quick boost of energy. But carbohydrates also play a structural role.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like cellulose, for example.
Cellulose. Yeah.
It's most abundant carbohydrate on Earth.
Wow.
And it's the main component of plant cell walls.
Okay, so it's like the scaffolding of the plant world.
Yeah, you got it. It's what gives plants their rigidity.
Okay.
Allows those towering trees to stand so tall.
Wow. And what about chitin? Isn't that a carbohydrate too?
Oh, yeah, chitin. It forms those tough exoskeletons of insects and crustaceans.
Right.
Incredibly strong, very durable.
So carbohydrates are more than just, a source of sweetness.
Oh, way more.
They're essential for structure and function.
Absolutely.
Okay. We've covered proteins, carbohydrates. What about that third type of macromolecule you mentioned?
Nucleic acids. These are the information carriers of the cell.
Okay.
They're the guardians of our genetic blueprint.
So we're talking like DNA and RNA.
You got it. DNA and RNA.
I'm sensing a theme here, like each of these macromolecules has its own unique, crucial role to play.
Absolutely. And nucleic acids are particularly fascinating.
Yeah.
They hold the instructions for building and operating everything in our bodies.
Wow.
Like they're the detailed instruction manuals for life itself.
So if we imagine a cell as a bustling city,
Okay.
nucleic acids would be like the blueprints for all the buildings, the traffic flow,
Yeah.
the energy grid.
That's a great analogy.
And like those city blueprints,
Yeah.
nucleic acids are written in a specific code, right?
Exactly. A language of nucleotides.
Nucleotide.
Nucleotides.
Okay, tell me more.
A nucleotide is the basic building block of nucleic acids.
Okay.
It's made up of 3 parts: a sugar molecule, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base.
Right.
And these nitrogenous bases, these are like the letters of the genetic code.
Okay.
Remember those from biology class?
Yeah, vaguely.
Vaguely.
Like adenine, guanine,
You got it. Adenine, guanine, cytosine,
right.
thymine, and uracil.
Wow. And these bases, they pair up in specific ways.
Yeah.
Forming like the rungs of the DNA double helix.
Exactly.
So like a twisted ladder.
Yeah, like a twisted ladder.
And each rung represents a specific code that dictates, how proteins are made.
Yeah.
And how cellular processes are controlled.
It's an incredibly complex code.
It is.
But scientists have made, remarkable progress in deciphering it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this information.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Packed into these tiny molecules.
It is.
Maybe we should take a quick pause here and come back to those nucleic acids in more detail later.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have.
There's still much more to discover.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll be right back after this short break. Okay, so we talked about those big molecules, proteins, carbs, nucleic acids. But what about those smaller molecules? The ones that, make all those chemical reactions in our cells actually happen?
Ah, you mean the enzymes.
Yeah, enzymes. They're kind of a big deal, right?
Absolutely. Enzymes are, essential to life. They act as catalysts, which means they speed up the chemical reactions necessary for everything, really,
Right.
From digestion to DNA replication.
Wow, so without them, things would just grind to a halt.
Pretty much.
So if those macromolecules are like the big machines of the cell, the enzymes are like the little mechanics that keep them running.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And they can be incredibly efficient.
Like how efficient are we talking?
I mean, some enzymes can speed up reactions by a factor of millions, even billions.
That's amazing. Do you have an example?
Sure. Carbonic anhydrous.
Okay.
This enzyme is found in our red blood cells,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps to convert carbon dioxide into carbonic acid,
Okay.
which is a key step in transporting that CO2 from our tissues to our lungs.
Cool. So without it, we'd be in trouble.
Big trouble. That reaction would happen way too slowly for our bodies to function properly.
Okay, so they're obviously important, but how do they actually work? They don't, wave a magic wand over those molecules, do they?
Uh-huh. No magic wand. But they do have a very specific way of doing things. Each enzyme has this unique region called the active site.
The active site, okay.
It's perfectly shaped to bind to a specific molecule called the substrate.
Okay, so the substrate is like the target molecule.
Yeah, the molecule the enzyme is going to work on, and the active site is where the magic, the chemistry happens.
I see. So it's kind of a lock and key.
Exactly.
Only the right key fits.
Perfect analogy.
And what happens when the substrate binds to the active site?
Well, then they form what we call an enzyme-substrate complex.
Okay, that sounds important.
It is. This interaction allows the enzyme to lower the activation energy of the reaction.
Activation energy, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a chemistry term. Basically, think of it as a hill that the reaction has to climb to get started.
Okay.
The higher the hill, the more energy is needed, and the slower the reaction. Enzymes lower the height of that hill.
So they're not creating energy, they're just making it easier for the reaction to happen, like clearing a path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why enzymes can speed things up so dramatically.
Makes sense. But are enzymes always working at top speed?
Yeah.
Or are there things that affect how they work?
Oh, yeah. There are definitely factors that can influence their activity. Things like temperature,
Okay.
pH, even the concentration of the substrate itself.
So it's like finding the right environment.
Yeah. The sweet spot where the enzyme can be most efficient.
Right.
Each enzyme has an optimum temperature and pH range.
Does it?
Yeah, where it functions best.
So some enzymes like it hot,
Some do.
some like it acidic,
Exactly.
and some like Goldilocks, right?
Yeah. Well, for example, those enzymes in our stomach,
Yeah.
they work best at a low pH, very acidic.
Yeah.
But the enzymes in our blood, they prefer a neutral pH.
What happens if the conditions aren't right?
If it gets too hot or too
Yeah.
acidic, the enzyme can denature.
Denature, what does that mean?
It means its shape changes, and it can no longer bind to its substrate effectively.
Oh, no. So it's broken.
In a way, yeah, think of it like cooking an egg.
Okay.
The heat causes the proteins in the egg white to denature, and they solidify.
Right. They change completely. So it's all about maintaining that balance.
Exactly. The right environment for those enzymes to do their jobs.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But with all those different enzymes in a cell, how do we keep track of them all? Is there a system?
There is. Scientists have classified them into 6 main groups based on the types of reactions they catalyze.
Okay, I'm going to need those names again.
All right. Oxidoreductases, transferases, hydrolases, lyses, isomerases, and ligases.
Wow, that's a lot to remember. Can you break those down a little bit? What do they all do?
Sure. Oxidoreductases are involved in reactions where electrons are transferred from one molecule to another.
Okay.
Transferases move functional groups between molecules. Hydrolases break down molecules by adding water. Lyses break bonds without adding water. Isomerases rearrange atoms within a molecule. And ligases join two molecules together.
It's like a whole intricate dance.
It is,
Wow.
and each group has a specific role to play.
Incredible. Now, most enzymes are made of protein, right?
Mostly.
But some need a little help.
That's right. Some enzymes need what we call cofactors, non-protein components.
Okay. Cofactors, what are those?
They can be small organic molecules like vitamins or metal ions like iron or zinc.
Interesting.
These cofactors bind to the enzyme's active site
Yeah.
and help to facilitate the reaction, like giving the enzyme a special tool.
Okay, so the enzyme is the worker and the cofactor is the tool.
Exactly.
They work together.
And without the right cofactor, some enzymes just can't function.
I see. So that's why a balanced diet is so important
Absolutely.
to provide all those necessary vitamins and minerals.
Right. We've talked a lot about macromolecules.
Yeah.
I know we tend to lump lipids in that category.
We do, yeah.
But they're not polymers like those others.
They're not.
No,
That's
they're
not.
usually much smaller, but we group them with the macromolecules because of their role in cell membranes.
So membranes, those are like the skin of the cell.
Yeah, the barrier that separates the inside from the outside world. And lipids, specifically a type called phospholipids, are the main building blocks of those membranes.
So even though they're not polymers,
Right.
they play a big structural role.
Absolutely.
But why are phospholipids so good for that job?
They have this unique structure,
Okay.
a hydrophilic head that loves water
Uh-huh.
and a hydrophobic tail that hates it.
Interesting.
So in a watery environment, they spontaneously assemble into a bilayer,
A bilayer.
2 layers,
Yeah.
with the heads facing out towards the water
Okay.
and those tails tucked inside, away from the water.
Like a molecular sandwich.
Exactly.
The water-loving heads are the bread, and the water-hating tails are the filling.
Perfect. And that lipid bilayer, it forms a really effective barrier.
Okay.
It controls what can go in and out of the cell.
So simple structure, but really important.
Absolutely crucial for maintaining the cell's environment and letting it function properly.
That's incredible.
It is. And lipids do other important things too.
Yeah.
They store energy, act as signaling molecules, and even provide insulation in some organisms.
Wow. So they're essential,
Absolutely.
even if they don't follow all the same rules as those other macromolecules.
They might be small, but they're mighty.
They are. All right. So we've gone from those basic building blocks, the metabolites,
Yeah.
to these intricate machines, the enzymes.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And, we've only scratched the surface here.
Oh, yeah, there's so much more to explore.
There is. And with all this knowledge about these molecules, about the chemistry of life, I can't help but wonder, could we actually create artificial life?
Whoa, that's a big question.
It's amazing to think that all this is happening inside us,
Right. All these tiny molecules working together.
Yeah, like a whole microscopic world. So where do we go from here? What's next in, like, the world of biomolecules?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about science, right? The journey never really ends. Every new discovery just opens up more questions.
Yes. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly. And we're constantly developing new tools, new techniques to study these molecules in even greater detail.
So what are some of the hot topics in this field? What are researchers really excited about right now?
Well, there's a lot of buzz around understanding protein folding.
Protein folding, okay.
Yeah, like how does a linear chain of amino acids manage to fold into such a precise three-dimensional structure?
Yeah, that's mind-boggling.
And then there's the implications for, diseases like Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Which are linked to misfolded proteins.
Right. And what about gene editing? I mean, with all we're learning about nucleic acids, that seems like a huge area.
Oh, absolutely. Gene editing is a field that's just exploding with possibilities.
Yeah. I mean, could we actually correct genetic defects?
Potentially.
Develop personalized medicine?
It's all on the table.
I mean, even enhance human capabilities.
I mean, those are big questions.
Yeah.
With huge ethical considerations.
Of course. Yeah.
But the potential is there.
It is. And what about enzymes? I mean, we see how powerful they are.
Yeah, and we're learning to harness that power,
Okay.
for a whole range of applications.
Like what?
Well, like developing new drugs, biofuels, creating more sustainable manufacturing processes.
It's really incredible. It feels like we've only just begun to explore the potential of these molecules.
Oh, we definitely have. But the possibilities really do seem endless.
They do. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of wonder.
That's important.
Yeah. I mean, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being amazed by that intricate beauty of the molecular world.
Because, within those tiny molecules lies the key to understanding not only, who we are,
Right.
but also what we might become.
It's a pretty incredible thought. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.